Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and today's video will be another video of true crime, and in particular I'll be doing the Idaho 4 case. Now, I've done a number of readings on the Idaho 4 and I haven't released them all because I don't think I was very specific in what I was asking, and some of the information that came through I just felt like I shouldn't put it out there. So I'm going to be very specific now, and I'm going to ask why that household of young adults was chosen. I did do a video which I released on the motive, and I think that motive was really good. I think it answered the question, right? The motive, like what was behind the act of violence. But I didn't get to the why were they chosen. So it's a little different. It's not a motive question that I'm asking right now. What I'm asking is to see the connection. I'm not asking to see thoughts that went on. I'm not asking to see the violent nature of the crime. I just want to know, for this reading, what the connection is, right? And how they were chosen, or that household was chosen. Remember, I think he only moved to Washington like in August, or summer, sometime during the summer. And so from August, September, October, November, so in 4 months, he's established a connection between this household of people and himself, whereby he felt they had to pay an ultimate price for some reason, right? We'll always be scratching our heads on this one. This one's a real tough one. But at any rate, I'm being very clear. I'm not asking for anything above and beyond what the connection is or was between the perpetrator, whoever it was, and the young people who were killed. Okay. So let me go into my meditative place. I'm going to flip the camera and we'll get started. And for this reading, I'm using the very petite classic tarot deck, which I showcased a few videos ago. It's a recent acquisition, and it's a very nice mass-produced deck. If you're looking to do tarot in a meaningful way, in an inexpensive way, this deck was like $16 on Amazon, and it's a beautiful deck created by Carlo Della Rocca. If you're familiar with the ancient Italian tarot, that deck is based on this deck. This deck came out in 1835, I think, and And this deck came out, the other deck came out in like 1880, something like that. Okay. Oops. All right. When I was handling and mixing the cards, I just asked for enough information for the connection between the perp and the household of people that were chosen. I said I would do it in 6 cards plus quints if I felt they were necessary. So we have some kind of emotional attachment, bond, that perhaps quickly went sour. And the 6 being a perfect, wow. Okay, so we have 2 cards that are very emotionally satisfying, flanking a card of what could be considered distress. Given the nature of the question, which focuses on a very violent assault, right? In that context, in that light, I see 10 swords as being violent. So, this feeling of friendliness, of potential for emotional satisfaction not being what it seemed. We're changing abruptly. Okay, we have the female pope. It could represent any of the women in that household. Death. Underneath, the card of duress. And then another 6, so the 6 feeling, so the feelings of like warmth and love and, wonderful things of the 6 of Cups really takes a different turn, doesn't it? 6 swords in the context of the question. So we have, death playing out in the center of this. Let me do the quint cards. We have 2 and 10 is 12. 12 and 6 would be 18. So that would be the moon card, which I'll pull. And then we have 2 and 13 is 15. 15 and 6 would be 21, which is the world card. And then I'll figure out the quint for the entire spread and pull that. What a strange combination of quint cards. We have 2 nighttime cards. So we have the moon and the star, which in the context of the question and knowing a little bit about the story, we know it happened in the evening. And so I would read these in the context of that. Now, there's mystery, of course. The moon card definitely suggests mystery, things that are unknowable, things that are like a bad dream. And the star card could represent evening, hope, aspirations, and also things that last forever. There's no undoing this, right? And this is the quint card for the entire spread. It's just perhaps an everlasting mark. I don't know. And then we have the world card is the quint for this row. And it's so hard to reconcile, like the star card and the world card, which are such wonderful cards with such a desperately horrific event, And I think perhaps I'll get to the rest of the tomato in a minute, but perhaps it could be for us to see hope, because maybe we need reassurance and understanding that they're okay. Their spirits are fine. Their spirits have been taken, and their spirits are in a better, in a good place. And despite the horrific nature of how we understand what happened and how it affects us, especially the people who are involved, the family members, but all of us, we're all horrified about it. We need to maybe perhaps remember that there is a grand picture and there is a grand scheme of things, and in the grand scheme of things, they're in a good place. Now, do these cards here explain also? Are they doing double duty in explaining why this household was chosen? Could it have been an opportunity of the evening? They needed a place, they felt, the perp needed to do this in the evening. And perhaps this household was a household that, for whatever reasons, lent itself well to monitoring during the evening hours. I mean, I think from what we can understand, a vantage point behind the house, one could see into the house and pretty much know the whereabouts of people inside the house. And also the layout of the house was put on, like all of our homes are put on like these realtor websites, so a person can have access to almost any address they want, As long as the house has ever been sold by a realtor, they have the pictures out there, which I think really something ought to be done about that. I think it should not be okay. And I think once a house is sold, it should be a realtor's responsibility to take it down. I think so. I just think because it's irrelevant to keep them up, because the way, if a person was to sell their house, it would never look the same as the previous owner anyway. So why are those pictures up? At any rate, that's me going off on a tangent. But it could have been that the house itself lent itself very well to nighttime observation and looking at it, if the way he apparently, the person that they believe did it, maybe somebody else was doing the same thing, but there is evidence to suggest that he was most certainly checking out the property at different times between August and when it happened in November. Now, it's possible, looking at this, it's possible that the house wasn't just chosen because of nighttime advantage and being able to see what was going inside, but there might have been a connection with the individuals. There might have been some kind of flirtation or friendship that went south, that didn't, quite pan out, and it kind of pissed him off. And then as he became obsessed about it, perhaps as he focused on the individual, and then he just saw demise as the solution. Gosh, and then the 6 under the other 6, that the emotional release into like tension, a release of tension, a letting go of like the anger, So and some of the other readings I've done that I haven't released, again, focus on a sense of attachment to individuals. And here I think it's more specific that it looks like maybe that it was one individual. And this card, in readings that I didn't release, some of these cards are repeated, which is uncanny. It was a different deck altogether. But this spread seems to be a focus on one individual. It may have been generated by an attachment to an individual that it didn't pan out. He saw this as the solution for releasing his tension and his anger. And then it maybe the house itself lent itself because he discovered, of his obsession. If he was like, scoping them out, he realized that it might be an easy target. Now, it's funny because on the one hand, if he met, an individual, if he met one of the young ladies or one of the people at the household, how does that necessarily mean he would know where they lived, right? So there must have been some kind of surveillance or some type of questioning. Maybe people like, where do they live? That kind of thing. Because just because you become attached to somebody, emotionally doesn't necessarily mean you're going to find out where they live. Most young women probably won't give strangers their addresses, right? I live over here at this address. They're not going to probably do that. Unless he took one of them out for a date, and one time, and, after that date, she said, no thanks, but by then the damage was done because he already knew where she lived. That, I don't know. I don't know if that's what happened. I'm just trying to fill in the blanks. But it seems that like it was an attachment that didn't work out. And then the solution to releasing the energy that was once, positive, that just released that negative energy in the order of removing who he thought, he thought should pay the price. And that would suggest that everyone else who happened to be there was collateral, which is horribly sad. And I think these cards, to answer the question, are just suggesting it was an opportunity, It was probably a household that lent itself. There were no Ring cameras on that property. There were no light sensor, light sensors to go off on the property. Any of the simple deterrents that, would have probably stopped someone from doing something like this. And all households really need to have security systems in this day and age, and lights that go off. And, I would be a deterrent to me if I was thinking of doing something and I saw cameras everywhere and I saw, motion detectors that, lights went on and stuff, but I'm not a criminal, so I guess I don't think like one, but it would occur to me that moving forward, all of us, particularly young, vulnerable young ladies, really should have security measures around their homes. That could have been another reason why it was an easy target. Okay, friends, I hope this has been insightful. Until next time, peace and stay well.